I have such a great pleasure to be representing the Working Families Party. And, I'm honored to be on the stage with Netroots Nation. It's an incredible community that we're now sort of engaging with virtually, but I still feel the power and connection that Netroots Nation is known to bring and to allow our very broad, very diverse, progressive community to engage in. So really grateful for all the work that you do. So it's also a true honor to be here with some of the brightest stars of an emerging new class of unapologetically Black, unapologetically progressive candidates and elected leaders. The Working Families Party aspires to be the electoral engine of social movements, taking the energy in the streets and channeling it to the ballot box. We are so proud to support each of your campaigns this year. And we're so proud that we could call you Working Families Democrats. In fact, you're exactly the kinds of leaders I want the WFP to elect and partner with at every level of government in every region of the country. So I want to start off with a question for everyone. So your politics, your campaigns, your policy platforms, so much of it was informed by social movements, from the movement for Black lives to the broader movements for economic and social justice. I'm interested in what you think of the idea of co-governance, where elected leaders work hand in hand with social movements and activists in their communities to make change.
I'll start. Because we don't know what the order is, but thank you. It's so good to be here with everybody. I'm Summer Lee. I just got reelected Pennsylvania State House. And I can say without a shadow of doubt that co-governance has been one of our kind of driving forces and kind of our values that we share and that we spread in my region, not in Pittsburgh and in Western Pennsylvania. So when I think about co-governance and the importance of it, I'm thinking about what our government is going to look like after our movement has had the sweeping successes that we're going to continue to have, we're going to continue to build. It's really at its core, how do we harness the power of the people in a real way, not in a rhetorical way? That the power to the people is just a saying, but really embodying that, really bringing that to our engagement, to the way that we're re-enfranchising new folks and expanding the electorate. How do we bring in and center working people, working class folks, poor folks, marginalized folks? How are we ensuring that those people who are closest to issues, but maybe not closest to government right now, maybe not closest to the levers of power, how are we ensuring that we're bringing them to the levers of power, but really that we're bringing the levers of power straight to them? So I feel like that's where we derive our, not just our power, but our strength, is where we build our movement. So co-governing has to exist because even as we're making these big decisions, we don't have any right as elected leaders to pretend that we know more, that we're better, that we're smarter. We might have different information, but these folks who are going through it, they understand this work. They understand the solutions. They know the path in the society they want to build, and they have an inherent right to be a part of building that. We're just the tip of their spear. We're just a tool, but we're not, rulers here.
Thanks so much, Summer. Mondaire or Jamaal, please share some of your assessments.
Sure. First of all, I'm so pleased to be here. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Mondaire Jones. I'm the Democratic nominee in New York's 17th Congressional District. And when I think about co-governance, I think about something that has always been a principle for me, which is that any elected office, any elected official, that power derives from the people. And so that connection doesn't just evaporate when the person takes office, as I hope to be doing in just a few months from now, along with my friend Jamaal Bowman. And it has to be a continuation of running for office, where you have grassroots organizers applying pressure, getting the word out, making sure that issues are salient. Some of the things that I ran on were, saving the world from climate catastrophe, right? So a Green New Deal, Medicare for all, student debt forgiveness. These are things that we are going to continue to need grassroots organizers to help us out with as legislators in the United States Congress, for example, because we know that we are about to elect a new president and a vice president who we are not always going to agree on things with. And we're going to be to the left of those individuals on any number of issues. And so we are going to need the help of any and everyone of good conscience who's going to be able to make sure that we build this national political pressure to push people to the left so that they are more in line with the best interests of the American people.
Great. Thanks. Jamaal.
Yeah, I'll just add, first of all, what's up, Maurice? Great to see you, brother, as always. What's up, Mondaire? Summer, it's a pleasure to meet you. I look forward to meeting you in person. I mean, the bottom line is it's our job to serve the people. I mean, we didn't run for office for ourselves to get to Congress and do work for ourselves to only meet the needs of what we believe should happen in the communities, where we ran to serve the people. And to quote Ayanna Presley, those who are closest to the pain need to be closest to the power. So the people who are dealing with housing insecurity, the people who are dealing with food insecurity, the ones going to underfunded schools, the ones who are uninsured and underinsured, the ones struggling to find jobs, those are the people we are serving. So we have to listen to them. We have to govern with them. And if my policies don't work in alignment with what the people are saying, then I'm not doing my job. If I'm not open to the feedback from the people in my district, then I'm not doing my job, and it's their job to vote me out of office. In terms of the grassroots organizations that have supported our campaign and support Netroots and support all of our work, they have been on the front lines fighting for the issues that matter most to all of us for decades. So in terms of an expertise regarding a particular issue, it's their expertise which will also inform the policies that I support, that we all support. So co-governance is how a democracy is supposed to work. It is how America is supposed to work. Unfortunately, we've had a corporate elite that has co-opted our political system since the inception of this country, but definitely over the last 40 years. I mean, they have gone buck wild. And now it's time for us to take it back, and this is our moment to take it back. So co-governance and really uplifting the power and the voices of the people, that matters more than anything else.
Great. And let's stick with you, Jamaal, for the second question. Now, you know, for those of you that might not know, Jamaal is both a student and teacher of history. And so it's no surprise that you've centered your agenda for Black Americans around the idea of Reconstruction. Now, what's your vision for Reconstruction, and how can it help us end white supremacy?
Right. So America has been reconstructing itself from the very beginning, right? From the Revolutionary War to the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement to the Industrial Revolution, right? America has been reconstructing and rebuilding itself. The problem is Black folk have been left out of that equation, right? So when we talk about our freedom, the passage of the 13th Amendment and our freedom, where we were supposed to receive 40 acres, that never happened. Instead, as we moved out west, the Homestead Act was passed and millions of acres were given to white folk, both native and foreign born. So we were left out of that equation. So Reconstruction failed us regarding step one. Step two, after the Civil Rights Movement, which was an incredible movement, we passed the Voting Rights Act, passed the Civil Rights Act, did incredible work there. What happened after that movement, right? We had mass incarceration, and we had a war on drugs that targeted Black and brown communities that disproportionately landed us in prison. And in between, we've been dealing with white terror, literally terrorist organizations like the Ku Klux Klan, and white terror in terms of policy, like the GI Bill and redlining and things that kept us out of building wealth. So we tried Reconstruction 2 times before, and it did not work. Black folk, indigenous folk, people of color were kept out of it. Hopefully, third time will be a charm as we engage in this moment where we're literally dealing with the Spanish flu, the Great Depression, and the Civil Rights Movement all at the same time. This is a chance for us to rebuild America. This is a chance for us to rebuild our nation in the image of our beautiful strength and our beautiful diversity. The problem is, if we don't go through a period of truth and reconciliation and a true reckoning with our history, we will never be able to heal as a country and properly move forward in our greatest strength. We have not gone through the healing. So the Reconstruction agenda that we are introducing is a process of truth and reconciliation, similar to Germany, similar to Rwanda, similar to South Africa. let's reckon with our history and go through a process of healing. As we go through that process and we reflect on our ugly legacy of racism and slavery, we then hopefully make a paradigm shift and invest massively reparations in communities that have been ignored so that the people in those communities can rebuild their communities in their own image. It's a process of shifting resources from our bloated military industrial complex, our bloated police departments, and Wall Street into the people in our communities that are creative, that are brilliant, that are genius, and allow them to rebuild their housing, their healthcare infrastructure, their schools, jobs, and everything that we know really truly centers public health. And it is our job as a federal government to get this done. And the last thing I want to say is this. This is our moment. This is our moment. We cannot waste this moment. We cannot waste a second. This is our moment to rebuild the nation into what we know it's capable of becoming. And it's not just about this moment in this country. This is a global movement and a global initiative where we're going to uplift poor Black and brown people all over the world, and we're going to leverage America's power as a humanitarian leader. This is our moment to beat Trump. This is our moment to flip the Senate, and we have to get the right Democrats in office, both at the federal, state, city, county, and school board level. And we got to continue to organize every single day of our lives, because the Republicans and the white supremacists, they are organizing every single day of their lives to make sure that none of us become uplifted. So it's our job to organize in that way, in this moment, to make sure we transform the country and transform the world. And I can't tell you how excited I am to have Mondaire riding with me, to have Summer riding with me, and I'm riding with her, to have Maurice and Working Families Party like it's on. Netroots is in the building. Let's go. I'm so excited.
All right. Spoken like a true BX native. I'm waiting for you to drop the mixtape. Oh man. So let's move to you, Summer. And also you reminded me why you are Congressman-elect, because you bring that fire. So Summer, let's go to you. And I want to talk particularly about your race, because I think your race for Black progressives is so fascinating. For Black women, it's so instructive. For this transformational energy that we're building, where new and young people who are committed to structural change, when we get into office and we're insurgents, what happens? So, you went up against the establishment now twice. The first time in 2018, you and Sarah Enamorado helped bring down a Pittsburgh political dynasty, right? Now, the second time, the machine struck back. So can you tell me about your experience and what it means for Black progressives?
Yeah, certainly. It's definitely been an experience. Just to kind of like dovetail off of Brother Bowman there, we have to really recognize that there are folks who have a vested interest in us going back to that normal that they keep talking about, and building Black political, power and Black political and progressive empowerment is certainly something that's an impediment to that. And we saw it, live right here on the ground in my race. And I'm certain that it was many races like it, just as a Black woman and just as an incumbent who's been here now for a year and a half, the first thing that we were indoctrinated with is that, we don't touch our incumbents. We don't run against each other. We don't even like the primary incumbents. But look, when I ran again, when my time came up to start, running again, my primary opponent was already out by the time we were like 4 months into me even existing. I don't even know how I could have messed up, in that short amount of time. But they were there. And he got traction and he got support from, big name folks in the party. And when it came down to it, I was the only incumbent to not get the endorsement of the Democratic Party. I was the only incumbent to not get the endorsement of the AFL-CIO. And even now that I have no opponent in November, I still don't have the endorsement of the state council of the AFL-CIO. And that really speaks directly to kind of this unapologetic Blackness that we have here, to that unapologetic progressiveness, to that unapologetic, we're here for poor and working class people. We're here for marginalized people. We're here to empower those folks. You know, we're here to organize those folks. We're here to take back what's ours. And, you know, we're not going to apologize for that. We're here to press an agenda that is people-centered. And the urgency that we have here, it startles some folks. Because when you're accustomed to being able to operate in the ways in which, you know, our system, our political system, and because our economic system, the ways in which they've operated, they're not accustomed to folks who are bold and loud and not powerful in and of themselves, and recognizing of that. Not here because we want to build power or self-aggrandize, you know, here because we genuinely and truly believe in the power of these people, believe in the power of our people. So I used to say often, you know, that they're not attacking me, they're attacking you. They're attacking your potential. They're attacking us. They're attacking our movement. They're trying to stop and stymie our movement. And that's what we were able to focus on, you know, how we run a grassroots campaign that doesn't get distracted, not even by, you know, a global pandemic, that can't be distracted by negative mailers from your party, that can't be distracted by any of those things, because we know the society that we're building is worth fighting for, even when it seems distant, even when we're being attacked every step of the way, even when everything is up against us. So that was kind of what we had to deal with. I certainly hope I don't have to do this anymore, but I imagine that, again, these systems were not built overnight. They're not going to be dismantled overnight. So they know that we're coming. They see us building. They see that we're getting new folks coming in, that we're getting new Black progressives coming in. You know, that shows them they're going to definitely get hip to our game. So I expect that the attacks will keep coming, but I know that our movement will keep building in real time. That's right.
And, you know, they say it takes a nation of millions to hold us back. And I know the next time you run, I know at least there's two sitting Congress people who will quickly endorse you.
I'm going to call them, you know.
Two working families Democrats in Congress that will have your back. So that's what it's all about, building that movement so we support one another, we show up for one another. And when the empire strikes back, we strike back harder. So Mondaire, we are weeks away now from the most important election of our lifetime. I know people say that all the time, but I think it tends to be true every time we say it, and it certainly is true this election. And the Democratic presidential ticket isn't offering necessarily the type of bold transformational vision that you and the rest of the folks on this panel are offering. I mean, I could say that as somebody, like just this morning, WFP endorsed the ticket, not because we agree on everything. In fact, we have deep disagreements, but because we understand the threat in the White House and what's on the ballot. So talk to me a little bit about what it means to folks in your communities or to the people around the country that are inspired by you, that feel that enthusiasm around your campaign and what's on the ballot in November.
Everything is up for grabs in November. And one thing that I have been constantly reminding people of in the course of my own campaign, especially in recent months and weeks, is that, yeah, you know, for many of us, in fact, I would say probably for most progressives, this nominee of the Democratic Party was not the person who was our first choice. In many instances, he wasn't our second, third, or fourth choice. But there is no threat to everything that we stand for as progressives more dangerous, more powerful than Donald Trump continuing to be in the Oval Office. You know, my sister in action, Representative Ayanna Pressley, calls him the occupant of the Oval Office. And I think that's the appropriate way to describe him. I don't want to call him the president. You know, I would like to think of any number of other folks as my president before a white supremacist who is at the helm, the most powerful person in the world. And so I'll be phone banking for Joe Biden and asking the people, the hundreds of folks who phone bank for me in the course of my campaign to do the same tonight and for Kamala Harris. But make no mistake, that does not mean that come January of 2021, folks like Jamaal Bowman and myself and Summer and others won't be working mightily to make sure, number one, that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are held accountable for the things that they said they would do over the course of this year-long presidential campaign. But more than that, are applying the kind of pressure, using strategic leverage and hopefully in a co-government fashion, a co-governance fashion, as you spoke to earlier, Maurice, making sure that, on issues like climate, for example, that we are acting more urgently and more ambitiously to save the planet and ensure a livable future for ourselves and for the people who come after us, that we are doing something serious about forgiving student debt so that we can liberate an entire generation of young people to meaningfully participate in this economy so they don't have to live at home with their parents and their grandparents because they've been crippled by student debt, even as wages have remained stagnant over the past several decades. That we are doing something meaningful. And for me, that means Medicare for all when it comes to the healthcare crisis that we're experiencing. We're living in a time where a majority of the American people support Medicare for all. It is shameful to me that the Democratic platform does not include that, that the Democratic platform rejected the legalization of marijuana as something that really should not be controversial anymore, especially given what we've seen in our so-called criminal justice system, which I call a criminal legal system, the incarceration of so many Black and brown people, deliberately, intentionally, a relic of Jim Crow. If you ask Michelle Alexander, who really penned that seminal work, right, the new Jim Crow. And so we can't take anything for granted. We can't take for granted the fact that our nominees are going to govern in the way that we would want them to. And it's why it's so important that we exercise, if we're in Congress, our Article I authorities. One thing that we've gotten away from right now in recent years is the fact that Congress really should be the most powerful aspect of our federal government. It's why it's in Article I. It's why the framers put it in Article I, because they thought that Congress should be the most powerful. But instead, we've had an executive that has way too much power. So as a progressive, soon to be progressive in Congress, we need to be acting as a block. That means everybody in the Congressional Progressive Caucus needs to get their act together and withhold their support from legislation that should be better for the American people. It means that folks who self-describe as progressives in Congress have to start legislating like that. And if not, then grassroots organizers need to hold them accountable. And I agree with my brother Jamaal Bowman earlier when he said that we need to elect better Democrats. It is not enough to have the letter D next to your name. I just got done running in a crowded 8-person Democratic primary. Now, one person dropped out by the end. And so we were in a situation where I was the only person supporting Medicare for all, the only policy that would literally ensure everybody has health care in the midst of a global pandemic that people are comparing to the 1918 Spanish flu and that disproportionately has harmed Black and Hispanic communities in our society. With my own member of Congress, for all the disagreements that I may have had with her that led me to do a primary challenge before she had announced her retirement last fall, even she agreed with Medicare for all. And so we have really got to elect better people to Congress and at all levels of government. And I'm so grateful to the WFP for being part of that. And I invite other people to make sure that we hold Democrats accountable in the same way that we, of course, have to be holding Republicans accountable, because not all Democrats are made the same.
Thank you, Brother Mondaire. That couldn't be more true. And, I think one of the things that I appreciate about that is, like, as you enter Congress, you're not just, changing the complexion of Congress, you're changing the direction of Congress, right? And so representation is important to all of us as Black folks, but values is as important. And the values and progressive stance that our elected officials take are what determines whether or not the Black community have elected officials that are actually committed to a Black agenda, right? And have working people actually committed to a working people's agenda. So I know we have 3 minutes left. So this is a lightning round, right? And in our 3 minutes, I would just love to hear from you. So imagine we're in a time machine. We take off and we've won. Electorally, we've defeated the white supremacist and the occupant of the White House and all of his enablers in the federal government all the way down. We flipped the Senate. It means that in January 2021, progressives could actually govern It means in state houses, like in the state house in Pennsylvania, there's a new mandate for progressive change. Let us know, what do Black progressives do? What is the unique role for Black progressive leaders in that moment? Let's start with Summer.
Yeah, I personally think that, when we win, when we are able to flip houses, state houses, the federal government, it makes a lot of difference. And I know that a lot of folks aren't seeing kind of that bigger picture, but as somebody who's in it with a Republican held majority right now, but also in a moment that is so inescapably Black, this is a Black moment. Whether we're talking about COVID-19 or we're talking about police violence or we're talking about systemic racism, this is a very Black moment. And it's time that, those are reflected, those issues, those concerns, or those struggles are reflected in our governance. When we flip these houses, what we didn't get to do is set the agenda. We get to set the messaging. We get to start to navigate and steer the ship a little bit. At no point are we ever going to have all the power, but I can assure you that I'm going to have an easier time, and we're all going to have easier times pushing some of those Democrats who we find problematic than pushing some of those overt white supremacists who don't even believe that they need to come to us or talk to us or come to our marches. Those aren't the folks who even feel like we need to have a say in any of this. So I think it's so important that we recognize how important it is that we set an agenda right now. As we're talking about building a new world coming out of COVID, not going back to normal, as we're talking about Medicare for all and workers' rights and family leave, paid and family leave time and educational equity and cultural responsibility. Those are all things that only we can lead on, that only our voices can help to direct that ship. And we need to do it with more power at the speaker's desk, the speaker's rostrums all across this nation.
Thank you, Mondaire.
Yeah, I love that this is a Black moment, and we have to extend that moment to permanence because we know that when Black people are allowed to lead, that is beneficial to all Americans. Because as my sister in action, Ayanna Pressley, says, the people closest to the pain must be closest to the power. And what I said over the course of my primary campaign is that when we have more people in office for whom policy is personal, we get better policy outcomes. People can be trusted to always fight in the best interest of the people who they are elected to represent when they are not corrupted by privilege and wealth and corporate influence and white supremacy, and you name it. And so I'm really excited about this moment. I see it in my district, which is largely white and affluent. I'm going to be representing the 19th most affluent congressional district in all the United States of America. And I ran on a bold progressive platform in the suburbs of New York City and Westchester and Rockland counties. And what I've heard from my future constituents is that they want me to show leadership on issues of systemic racism in our society, which, for the record, extends well beyond individual examples with police to include the way that we fund our public schools in this country. A property tax-based system that Jamaal could speak really at length about, that results in the concentration of tens of billions of dollars in white communities and the deprivation of Black and brown kids of critical educational opportunities. It's a healthcare system that conditions your ability to get necessary medical care on what you can afford to pay, disproportionately harming Black and Hispanic people. And so we've got real work to do. I'm grateful for this moment in American history where people are looking to Black leaders to lead. And I think that we're going to do the right thing. And we're gonna, if we're doing what we're supposed to do, open the doors and extend and let the ladder down for other people to come after us, to also show that all throughout in all communities that Black people can lead quite well.
Thank you, Mondaire. Jamaal, last minute, bring us home.
I know. It's on us. It's on us to build the country and the planet that we want. It's on us. We don't have any time to blame anyone else, to point the fingers. We have to organize. We have to take advantage of this moment, and we have to build and create the country and the world that we want. Because the other side, they are organizing, strategizing, and mobilizing to stop us. So we cannot relax. We cannot rest. We have to build the nation that we want.
Thank you. Thank you, my panel, Summer Lee, Mondaire Jones, Jamaal Bowman. This is the biggest, baddest, blackest panel of the summer. So grateful for you. And thank you for the community of Netroots Nation. Arshad, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity on behalf of the Working Families Party. So grateful to be in community with you all. And I can't wait for my sister Jessica Bird and Stacey Abrams to bring down the house. Rashad, back to you.